Back 4 Blood just dropped a super juicy update trailer showing off new enemy types and special infected, environments, new guns, character and weapon skins, and a lot of cards and modifiers that change up the game in a big way. This trailer really addresses a lot of questions and concerns that I know a lot of people may have about Back 4 Blood, and I watched this trailer at 25% speed so that you don't have to, and we're really gonna dive in and dissect everything that we learned about the game from this trailer. So I know everyone is chomping at the bit to see the new special RIDDEN type, so let's go over that first, and there's actually quite a bit. The trailer shows us a card called Endless Horde that kind of implies that there's 3 variations of one type: the Hawker, Stinger, and the Stalker. Friggin' tongue twister. We don't really get a good look at how they're different from a gameplay standpoint, but you can see that each of them have their own design, which is pretty cool. We also see variations of both the Bruiser and what I'm assuming is the Wretch. Details are still pretty scarce about what this version of the Wretch does, but you can see the Bruiser variant in action. You can see that it's actually able to grab and pick up the player with its like weird tendril arm. And at first glance, this may not seem like that big of a deal, but one of the biggest problems that I had with the alpha was its lack of pinning enemies. For example, Left 4 Dead had the Hunter, Charger, and the Smoker that could pin the player down, and seeing more of that in Back 4 Blood is truly a welcome sight. I really like what they're doing with these special infected variants. I think it's cool that not only do they look different, but they also behave differently. They also really quickly showed off 2 totally new special infected, one named the Hag and is obscenely ugly. As far as how it works, we only have this one card description to go off of. Quote, "The best way to avoid being devoured is to not rouse the ire of the Hag. Defeat the Hag to earn a bonus reward." End quote. So if I had to guess, I would assume that the Hag kind of will remain dormant until you either shoot it or get too close to it, kind of like the Witch from Left 4 Dead. But that's just a guess, so grain of salt and all that. And in the last couple frames of the trailer, we saw one of the coolest looking specials yet, this chonky boy. Again, no name or gameplay details, but judging from just how it looks, it's probably safe to assume that this is going to be some kind of tank type. It just looks really strong and looks like it has kind of thick skin, and if you put it side by side with the tank, it kind of has the same body shape. Again though, grain of salt. But the special infected aren't the only ones with variations. There's also different variations of the common Ridden. One called the CHARRED that are basically just on fire and can burn players and set them on fire. There's also Blighted Ridden, which explode with acid and leave pools of acid on the ground where they died. We also saw armored versions of the Ridden wearing riot gear, and there's an armored Bruiser that we didn't get to see. While kind of skimming through the trailer, I also noticed that there's a lot of Ridden that have these kind of spikes coming out of them. But the video didn't really mention whether or not they're another variation or if it's just how some of them look. These guys look pretty cool, and they honestly kind of remind me of the Iron Maidens from Resident Evil 4. If you look close, you can also spot a few glimpses of one of the other unannounced survivors on some of the cards. Again, we don't have any details on this character yet, but I'm sure we'll see more of them this summer when the beta rolls around. Like I said before, this trailer showed off a lot of boomsticks, like a lot. So I'm just gonna kind of run through them and kind of list off everything that we saw. There's what looks like a firework or TNT, a frag grenade, I see a pipe bomb, the MP5, a sniper rifle, this LMG that I don't know the name of, a UMP, an RPK, a Desert Eagle, hell yes. There's mountable turrets, and a double-barreled shotgun that's going to work as a secondary weapon rather than a primary. Just in the trailer alone, there is so much weapon variety, and combine that with your attachment system and the other guns that we haven't seen yet. This is honestly a pretty crazy amount of weapon variety for a co-op shooter, and I'm honestly pretty impressed. The trailer also showed off a lot of cool levels from the game, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of map of variety in Back 4 Blood. We got to look at a prison, cemetery, some construction sites, couple cities, farmland, sewers, and this hedge maze area, which I can already tell is going to make for some crazy versus moments. But what about the gameplay side of things? Well, there's a lot we learned about that from screenshots and some blink and you'll miss it moments. So let me give you kind of the rundown of everything we learned. Seemingly, defibrillators are coming back. We saw glimpses of them on a couple cards throughout the trailer. So, like in Left 4 Dead, you can either defib dead players or cut them down from these meat walls to get them back into the game. This shot shows that you can pick up and throw propane tanks, and they announced that there's going to be unlockable cosmetics for both weapon and player skins. You'll be able to buy these skins and new cards with supply points that you earn from completing optional side objectives and challenges. Another thing that I noticed in the trailer is there's a lot of really good dismemberment effects, like the zombie gets its arm blown off, there's heads exploding, and just the gore in general is really intense. I love that. Not enough modern games go really heavy on the gore, but Back 4 Blood, as you can see, is throwing Evil Dead amounts of blood at people. To kind of finish off here, I thought we could talk about the different cards that they showed off, and there's a lot that genuinely change up the gameplay in really cool and meaningful ways. Along with the cards that change up the enemy variety and spawn in the fire and acid zombies, there's also this one that we saw called The Dark. This card makes it so that there's no power or electricity in the level. It's almost pitch black and you and your team have to navigate using flashlights. It also spawns in a bunch of the snitches that will alert the horde if you make too much noise. So for those of you that wanted more horror elements in Back 4 Blood, here you go. There's also the fog card that I've talked about before, where it covers the map in a thick layer of fog and it really changes up the atmosphere of the entire map, and it's honestly really cool to see when you actually play. Especially when it's a level that you've already played and you get to see just how much it changes up the overall feel of the level. Both of these cards fall into the event category, so I'm really excited to see what kind of other event cards there are. It would be cool if there was one that added in thunderstorms with really heavy rain and lightning. And for all of you out there that want Back 4 Blood to play even more like Left 4 Dead, you can actually use cards to make it feel more like Left 4 Dead. There's a card called Motorcycle Helmet that disables aim down sight in favor of extra damage resistance. And there's also this card called Ammo Stash that gives your secondary weapons unlimited ammo. So if you combine these two cards together in your deck, it's going to make it play more like the old games, because obviously they didn't have ADS and the pistols always had unlimited ammo. Honestly, the card system to me is looking really promising. The amount of customization that it gives the player and the amount of variety that it adds into the gameplay just makes this game look like it's going to be extremely replayable, like genuinely replayable, not just added in difficulty. And then when you combine that with all the different enemy types and weapons, I don't know, I just think this game is looking really promising. Hands down, this was an awesome trailer, and it's crazy just how much they announced in a 3-minute video. I hope this update and this video answered a lot of questions that you had about the game, and if it did, be sure to drop a like because it really does help me out a lot. I'll be covering everything Back 4 Blood on this channel along with other games and topics, so feel free to stick around and check out some of the other stuff I got going on. Thanks for checking out the video, guys. I really do appreciate it, and until next time, have a good one.